Welcome back to Sentinel RC. Thank you guys for joining me. Today we're doing an upgrade of the CVA's front and rear and all the things that go into doing that replacement. So gather around, pay attention. We're gonna remove the top. And so first of all, we gotta remove our tires. So first things first, I've already got that process started. So if you've got your tools ready, you got your wrench, get the tires off. If you want to take all 4 of them off, that's fine. Next, we have to get rid of the front bumper. So what I've done, because I have the light kit, I've just disconnected the front light set from the other piece. That way it just makes it easier to get the front bumper off and out of the way. If you want, after you've disconnected the front bumper, you can just fold it over the top while leaving it connected. I find it's much easier to do this. So with our either 2.0 millimeter hex driver or our electric hex driver, we're gonna look to remove the front bumper. Front bumper removal requires the removal of this screw here. And on underneath side, we're gonna be removing these two here to remove the front bumper. Front bumper removal also needs the removal of these 2 screws here. So after we've gotten the screws out from these 2 positions, we're gonna remove the light set. Like I said, we're just gonna slide it through the front shock tower, getting it out of the way, and then we can just kind of take our bumper right off. The other screw is still in place so that we don't lose that. Set that right there. Now it's out of the way, obstructing any of our views. Next, for us to get inside the front diff cap and to mess with the CVAs, we're gonna have to move the shocks. Now we can do a full removal by taking both screws out, or we can just kind of swing them up into position. That way they're out of the way. That gives us access to the front diff cap. So next we wanna remove our sway bars, right? So we got the sway bar attachment there that's kind of in the way, so I kind of removed one on one side. All we're gonna do is loosen the screws. We don't have to take the screws out completely. So a couple turns, just that way it comes out of from being flush against the bar, holding it in. And now we can get the sway bar off and out of the way. We just rotate it off to the side. Now we're gonna get access to the front diff cap. So, removal of the front diff cap requires you to take out the bottom screw on each side, and then we flip it over this screw here from the base. We've gotten the screws out. Now we can get into the front diff cap. Like I said, this guy just slipped off. That's the way it goes. But here's what the part is. This little piece of the bearing that disintegrated, it just stuck on the shaft and I just couldn't get it off. How did it get there and stay there? I don't know. I was doing speed runs and the bearing fully disintegrated. As I'm gonna show you guys here, this is the pieces that I was left of with the bearing and that right wheel hub, and so yeah, disintegrated into little smithereens. Wheel began wobbling when I noticed, and I was like, wow, okay, let me take a look. And voila, it needed to be replaced. And so here we are. So like I said, we're gonna be removing that front diff cap. Voila, taking it right off. Now, if you're struggling with remembering where to place your screws, no worries. You can just, this is a way to help you remember. You can just place the screws, the ones that are able to be placed this way, right back into the housing that they belong, right? And that'll help you remember. That way you don't have to worry about forgetting where they go. This will just help you. Stay tuned. All right, so now we're just gonna pop the diff out. From here, the diff pops out pretty easily, right? Got the diff. So this is what we're gonna be working on. So now we can just slide the body off to the side here. Let me just reposition some stuff. Let's move our little mat over. And let's take a look inside of the housing of the diff, right? Just to kind of see what's going on in there. And it looks pretty dirty in there, right? We want to look at the gear, that pinion gear, just to see if there's any wear and tear on it. Does it need to be replaced? Does it not? At this time, you want to, if you see any crazy dirt in there, you want to kind of get in there and brush it out. So if you got your brush it out. So I've got 1-inch paint brushes, it's 25.4 millimeters by 1 inch that I use to kind of clean around the car, such like that. So brushing all the dust out. If you've got some paper towels or tissue, get in there and wipe out the grease. You're gonna be putting new grease in there anyway, since we've opened up the diff. From what I can see, nothing crazy going on in there, which is good. Looks fine. The pinion gear looks good. And so we can set that aside. Next, we want to work on the gear diff, the front differential. So I've never taken this one out, so this is going to need a good cleaning. So like I said before, we're going to be replacing the drive shafts, which are these guys here. This guy slipped off, that does, not to worry. This is what we're going to be replacing, these guys, the plastic CVA. So let's get our pack ready. So we're going to be replacing them with the Team Associated metal front drive shaft. So this is assembly number SC25847. So if you get on that website, you look it up or you type it into one of the search bars, that should pop up. That should give you the front CVAs. All right, so the components of the bag, what do we have? We have our 2 dog bones with our shaft, drive shaft on. We have our drive shaft adapter that goes on top to protect, and then we slide that in to the hub. We have our pins, don't lose these. We have our fresh pins, which go here, help lock it in. That way we can fit our hexes on, and that's standard for both sides. Like I said, we have our cover piece. Great. This is where, inside of the diff, where the drive shaft's coming outside of the diff, this is going to replace this entire piece here, because this is where the bones are going to sit, and this is where we're actually going to be coming from the drive shaft itself, I mean from the diff itself, going this way. So all the parts are there, it seems like, which is good. Keep those together. Don't lose those. Try not to. So, you'll notice here, we've got a nice little inset screw here. We're gonna take that screw out, and because there's a lot of rotation here at this joint, it's gonna be some hard rolling. We're gonna take that out and we're gonna Loctite it. So we're gonna get some Loctite and screw that back down in. Really, some red Loctite, because we want that to stay forever. You know, and the red Loctite does that, so. Now we're gonna get into the front differential. So, what we wanna do is break it down and take it apart. So let's get our trusty hex drivers, our handhelds. So get your 1.5 out. and get your 2mm one out, right? So if you've got the handheld, great. If you've got the machine ones, great. I'm gonna do a combination of both. So with diff removal, so first we wanna remove the drive shafts off the diff. So how do we do so? There's 2 screws here, one here, screw drive pins, right? Which are 1.5mm. So those are the ones we're gonna have to get in. And it's a quick unscrew before it fully dislodges, and then you slide it out because it's actually a pin, like so. So we'll do that to both sides, and you'll see that it just detaches from the diff itself. So there's nothing fully wrong with these drive shafts other than the fact that if you notice, the left drive shaft doesn't have that silver ring around the bottom of it that's lodged on and stuck. The right one does. Can't seem to get it off. I don't know how it got lodged on that tightly, but that's the reason why I'm being forced to do the drive shaft upgrade. As of right now, I was going to postpone it and wait. So we got the drive shafts off. Both sides, great. Now we're left with the diff. Let's move these to the side. We won't be needing those again. We won't be needing these pins or anything. So we're going to reinsert these pins just so we don't lose any parts. And if I can get that piece off, these will still be good functioning drive shafts. So I don't know how it happened. Maybe all of the heat generated kind of expanded it and slipped it right on a lot tighter than it needed to be. So we've removed the front diff cap, and we've got the drive shafts off. We've got our thread lock ready to go, and we've got our front differential. We've got the bearing off. So what we're gonna do first is we've got to remove these 4 screws to free up the internal portion of the diff cap. So that is a 1.5mm screw. So get your hex screwdriver. So we've got the diff opened up. We've got our ring gear, sun gear. We got our diff cup. So what we're gonna do is allow this stuff to kind of drain out. We've got our lube here, our silicone oil in the diff cup, and we've got it on the ring here. So we're gonna clean the ring. We're gonna get rid of these planetary gears, so we gotta get these guys out so we can free up all the parts. Inside there's another sun gear. So we're gonna push the shaft, the bottom of the shaft through to bring the sun gear to the top, and we're gonna drop it off. That frees up the diff cup. We can leave the bearing on. What we're gonna do is wipe down the internals of the diff cup, wipe down all of these little parts. So we wanna take this particular ring gear apart. There's an O-ring on it that we have to be mindful of. Don't lose the O-ring, it's actually a seal. Behind that, there is a pin and a shim. So we don't want to lose the shim or the pin. Be mindful that because there's so much caked on lube, it's going to be a little challenge to get the shim off. All good. Once the shim comes down, that exposes the sun gear. We have a pin inside that we want to be mindful of not to lose. And then we can just slide the shim off, and now we've taken apart the internals of the diff cup. So we're gonna do the same thing with the ring gear. So here, we also have a diff gasket that we're gonna get off and clean. So getting underneath the diff, here's our diff gasket. So we remove that. So now we've fully exposed front differential and all its working parts from the diff cup. So what we're gonna do is look to get these guys, once again, we're gonna take apart the planetary gears. They all have shims on the back of them, so be careful not to lose the shims. And we're gonna start the process of cleaning it up. So how? I'm gonna spray this thing down with some good oil cleaner or the nice good brand here. I'm not, in any way promoting this brand, but we all know what this blue and yellow with the red top is. And I'm just gonna spray. So we do not want to spray the diff cup. All we want to do is spray all of our working metal parts. Why? Because this chemical here, when combined with the chemicals of the plastic, it actually softens the plastic and makes it weak. And we don't want that happening. So be mindful not to spray the plastic on it. And once this gets done, I'll be right back with you guys. Now that we have all the parts separated and cleaned, we're gonna go with the process of rebuilding the diff. We're gonna start with the ring gear first. So we place our gasket on top, be mindful to line the holes up. Secondly, we're gonna get our O-ring, place the O-ring down into the groove which it belongs to help it hold and stay steady. Sometimes it's gonna give some resistance, it's gonna wanna pop back out, so just place it in so it stays fit. Remember, we wanna make it such that this sun gear fits directly on top because it does have grooves, so we're going to treat it like a little Tetris block. Make sure that it's placed appropriately, and voila, we have our new portion of our drive shaft complete. So that side is complete. We're going to do the second part, which will be the diff cup and all of the planetary gears. So all the process is just about the same. So, O-ring placed, pin placed, shim placed, new outdrive shaft placed. Next, we have to assemble the planetary gears once again. So you'll notice these little grooves here on the pins. These lock into place, so we're going to be placing the planetary gears in that cross pattern. Once again, thinking of Tetris, we're going to fit the pieces so that way they fit properly and can be placed inside the housing of the differential. So and now we've got working gears. So now we've got our diff cup filled with our fluid, 60K fluid. We have our ring gear situated with our gasket, sun gear, and our drive shafts, outdrive shafts. Now we're going to start the process of replacing the screws. Looking at the top of the diff cup, you'll see the 4 holes for the screws. We're going to match that up right along with the top portion of gas. So you're spinning it around, you should see right where the hole is, matches. And you're gonna press down on, right? So from there, we'll get the screws back in. You'll notice a little bit of fluid oozing through the top. Just wipe that out. And now that we've got them all situated, we can screw. I'm gonna start at the top. We don't want to tighten it fully, but we want to decent tight until we get them all down. Then we can kind of go back around and tighten them. Remember, we want to go in the star pattern. So when you're looking at a clock, for example, if you don't understand what the star pattern is, think of a clock and you want to go from 12 to 6 to 9 to 3. So here we're going to go in and we don't want to strip the casing, but we want to give it a good tight squeeze just to tighten that screw up. And voila, wipe them down a bit. Gears working, gears turning, good. So from here, what we're gonna do is mess with the drive shaft. So what we're gonna do is undo the little pin here, and we're gonna Loctite that with some red Loctite. We don't want that coming loose on us. When we're driving. having a good old time. So we throw some good red Loctite on it. Doesn't have to be a lot. Get it right back into the groove. Good tight spin. And voila, we're gonna let that sit. That should cure in about 10 minutes. Fire this bad boy up. Place it to the side. Now we've got to start the process of getting the diff cap back on. We want to get the diff back inside the diff casing. So before we do that, we're going to add some black grease. Now we place the diff back into the housing like so. And so we have our drive shafts in place with our front differential. Remember, the black diff cup goes to the right side when looking at it from the top. When facing it head on, it goes to the left side. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to place the diff cap back on. This is what we're going to look to do here. We're going to retighten the sway bar screws after we place the sway bar back in, and then we'll get the shocks reinserted, and we should be good to go after that by adding our tires. So the front diff is complete. Now we're going to move to the rear differential. We've already got the tires off. It's a little bit easier because the shocks are not blocking the turnbuckles or the axles. So all we have to do is remove the bumper. 5 screws actually that we got to take out to get the bumper loose. So here's 1. We have 2 on the bottom, and then we have the 2 on the top here that we have to get rid of. Rear differential complete. New drive shafts in. And that there concludes the drive shaft upgrade. If you like my vids and it was very helpful, this tutorial, please give me a subscribe. It really helps out my channel. Greatly appreciate that. Give me a comment if you'd like to know something else, or if you struggle, reach out, do the comments, and leave me a comment, and I'll definitely respond. Until next time, thank you guys for tuning in to Sentinel RC.